Welcome to Elevate English. Elevate your English. Elevate your life. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to the Elevate English channel. Let's start our story. The Garden of Forgotten Dreams. Lena Reed had always dreamed of a quiet life. Growing up in the bustling city, the noise and constant movement had left her yearning for something simpler, something more rooted. At 28, after years of living a fast-paced corporate life, she decided to leave behind her high-powered job, the tall buildings, and the frenetic pace of the city, seeking solace in the countryside. The little cottage she moved into was nestled on the edge of a small town, surrounded by wildflowers and an overgrown garden. She was content with the isolation, finding peace in the rhythmic sounds of nature, the rustling leaves, the chirping birds, the wind swaying through the trees. Every morning, she would wake up early to tend to the garden, pulling weeds, planting new seeds, and watching her flowers bloom. But there was one thing about the town that she hadn't anticipated: the rumors about the mysterious man who lived in the house next door. People spoke in hushed tones about him, a man who was reclusive, whose life was a shrouded mystery. They said he hadn't spoken to anyone in years, that he kept to himself and spent his days in the silence of his home. Some even said he was haunted by a past that wouldn't let him go. One day, as Lena worked in her garden, she noticed him for the first time, a tall man standing at the fence that separated their properties, watching her with quiet intensity. His name, she would later learn, was Nathaniel Gray. He was the mysterious neighbor. His face was worn, like the pages of an old book, and his eyes held a deep sadness, a grief that Lena couldn't quite place. Nathaniel didn't approach her, not at first. He simply observed her from a distance, as though he was both curious and hesitant. Weeks passed, and Lena's curiosity grew. Who was he, really? What was the story behind those eyes? It was on a warm summer evening when their paths finally crossed. Lena was sitting on her porch, reading a book when Nathaniel appeared at the edge of her garden. He was holding a small bundle of wildflowers in his hands. "I thought you might like these," he said, his voice low and almost apologetic. "I've seen you working in your garden, and I thought you might appreciate them." Lena was taken aback by the unexpected gesture, but she smiled warmly. "Thank you," she said, reaching for the flowers. "They're beautiful. I didn't know anyone else in the neighborhood grew wildflowers." Nathaniel shrugged slightly, his expression unreadable. "I haven't had much time for a garden. Life's been complicated." There was a quiet weight in his words, and Lena couldn't help but feel a pull to understand him more, to offer some comfort for whatever burden he carried. Over the next few weeks, they began speaking more frequently, their conversations growing from brief exchanges to longer talks. Nathaniel told her bits and pieces of his life, though he was careful not to reveal too much. He spoke of a past filled with love and loss, of a family torn apart by tragedy. He had once been a man filled with ambition and dreams, but after the death of his wife and child, he withdrew from the world, unable to shake the grief that had consumed him. Lena, for her part, shared her own story, her escape from the city, the way she had been chasing a dream of peace and simplicity. And, as their conversations continued, Lena realized that she too had been hiding from the grief of a failed relationship, a broken engagement that had left her with a scar she hadn't yet healed. They began to spend more time together, sitting on the porch, talking, watching the sun set over the hills, and slowly their bond deepened. There was something in the way Nathaniel's presence felt grounding, comforting, like the earth beneath her feet. But their connection wasn't without complications. As much as they shared, there were still parts of themselves they couldn't fully express. Nathaniel's past haunted him, and Lena's fear of opening her heart again kept her at a distance, even though her feelings for him were undeniable. One afternoon, as they walked through the woods together, the silence between them felt heavier than usual. Nathaniel finally stopped, turning to face Lena. His expression was conflicted, as if he was battling something inside of him. "I can't keep living like this," he said, his voice breaking the silence. "I can't keep pretending that I'm fine, that I've moved on. I've been running away from everything for so long. But I think I'm starting to feel like maybe I can try again." Lena's heart skipped a beat, her mind racing. She knew exactly what he meant. She had been running too, hiding behind the walls she'd built to protect herself from the pain of her past. "I know," she whispered. "I've been afraid too. Afraid of losing myself again, of trusting someone else. But maybe it's time we stop running." In that moment, something shifted. The weight they had both been carrying seemed to lighten, even if only a little. They weren't ready to forget the past, but they had finally found the strength to face it together. As the seasons changed, so did their relationship. It wasn't a fairy tale, and it wasn't without its challenges, but Lena and Nathaniel found solace in each other's company. Their bond was like the wildflowers that surrounded them, imperfect, but beautiful in its own way. 1 year later, the garden that had once been overgrown and forgotten blossomed with color and life. So too did their relationship, stronger, more resilient, and built on the foundation of two people who had learned that sometimes the greatest love is born from the ashes of the past. Chasing fireflies. Eller Donovan had always been fascinated by the night sky. From a young age, she had spent countless hours lying on the grass in her backyard, staring up at the stars. It wasn't just the beauty of the stars that mesmerized her, but the feeling of infinite possibility they seemed to represent. To Eller, the night sky was a symbol of dreams, dreams of a life full of adventure, love, and unexpected moments. She had never quite found those moments. At 30, she was settled into a routine life. She worked as an editor for a small publishing company, spending most of her days staring at a screen, correcting typos, and making sure that the books she worked on were perfect. It wasn't a terrible life, but it wasn't the life she had envisioned for herself. One summer evening, as she sat in her favorite park, feeling a little lost in her thoughts, she saw him. He was standing on the edge of the field, his back to her. He was tall, with dark hair, and he seemed completely at ease in the night air, his gaze fixed on the sky. It wasn't the first time she had seen him. She had noticed him a few times before, but tonight was different. Tonight, there was something about him that caught her attention. Eller hesitated for a moment, then walked over to him. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the way the stars seemed to shimmer a little brighter when he was around. Or maybe it was because, for the first time in a long while, she felt like she could step outside of her comfort zone. "Do you come here often?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. He turned to face her, a smile lighting up his face. "Not really. But something about tonight felt different. I come here when I need to think." "I understand that," Eller said. "It's peaceful here. Almost like the world is far away." "It is," he agreed. "I'm Thomas, by the way." "Eller," she replied. They spent the next few hours talking, their conversation flowing as easily as the wind that rustled through the trees. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and the things that had brought them to this place in time. There was an undeniable connection between them, something that went beyond words. As they spoke, Thomas told her about his travels, a lifetime of adventures across the world. He had climbed mountains, dived into oceans, and seen things most people could only dream of. But in all of his adventures, he had never felt as alive as he did when he was standing in front of the stars. I don't want to chase things anymore, he said, looking at Ella. I want to chase moments. Fireflies, you know, the little things that make life worth living. Ella was silent for a moment, the weight of his words settling in her chest. She realized that she had been chasing something her whole life too: perfection, success, the idea of a life that was just right. But somewhere along the way, she had forgotten to enjoy the simple things, the moments that truly mattered. Fireflies, as she repeated softly. I think I'd like to chase those too. And so they did. For the next few months, they spent their evenings chasing fireflies, both in the literal and metaphorical sense. Thomas showed Ella how to find joy in the small, fleeting moments, in the quiet wonders of the world around them. Together, they found something they had both been searching for: a love that was wild, free, and full of possibility. The night sky was still filled with stars, but now it held a new meaning for Ella. It was no longer just a symbol of dreams, it was a reminder to embrace the unexpected, to chase after the fireflies, and to live in the moments that made life beautiful.